If you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably know I'm a big fan of RPGs. What you may not know is that the very first RPG I ever played was Dragon Quest I, then known as Dragon Warrior for the NES. It's also actually the reason I avoided RPGs for a long time. You see, when I was around 4, we had a neighborhood-wide garage sale, and my neighbor who was 13 at the time got stuck having to watch me during the event. So the day of, I walk over to his house and walk down to the basement and see that he's playing Dragon Quest I. He said he had some things to take care of and that I could take over for him if I wanted. I'm now convinced that he just wanted to keep me distracted while he went and did other things because he had just stepped outside the first castle. Naturally, not having played this type of game before and not knowing what I was doing, things didn't go so well. I'm pretty sure I had no equipment, and it didn't take long for me to wander too far from the castle and run into monsters that were way too powerful for a level 1 idiot with no equipment. I didn't pick up another RPG for years. I just assumed I sucked at them. Well, that's partially true. I also didn't understand that I was just in way over my head. When emulation first started springing up in the early to mid-90s, a friend told me how to find an emulator and ROMs. Not really understanding what I was doing, the first set of ROMs I downloaded were a collection of RPGs that someone had put together. The collection began my love for so many games like River City Ransom and the Ultima series. It also included Dragon Quest 1 through 4. I had already played Dragon Quest 4 at that point, so when I went back to play the first one, it felt a little too simplistic. Every RPG I had played to that point gave you a full party of characters to control with different actions they could take. Being an elementary school kid at the time, I wasn't really able to appreciate what the game represented to RPGs. While I've finished the game a few times since then, I've never really thought about the game critically. I'll be playing the Switch version mostly to save myself from the extra grind and awkward interface. It may be hard to believe, but there was actually a time in gaming when you had to open up a menu and select the door command to open up a door. Also, having a 9-month-old, being able to quick save in order to avoid walking all the way back to the first castle to save helps a lot. Dragon Quest I was originally released in Japan in May of 1986, over a year and a half before the release of Final Fantasy I, and it kinda shows. Final Fantasy allows you to customize your party with whatever jobs interest you. Dragon Quest has you playing as one guy who does everything. Final Fantasy lets you sail around the world and even fly through the air. Dragon Quest has you roaming the land on foot the entire time. Final Fantasy challenges you with large groups of enemies, forcing you to decide which targets to prioritize. Dragon Quest's battles are strictly 1v1 affairs. There's also one other thing Final Fantasy had that Dragon Quest didn't. Bugs. Whatever criticisms you could level against Dragon Quest, bugs isn't one of them, which is honestly kind of impressive for a game like this back in those days. There are a couple glitches you can do, but otherwise, everything just works. When we start up a new game, we get to name our character, and that's about it. You don't get to pick a class or customize your character in any way. The game still provides some variation in how your character develops, but we'll get to that later. We appear in a throne room in front of a king. He basically gives us the entire plot at the start. We're the descendant of a hero who saved the world long ago using the Sphere of Light, which was given to him by the goddess of the land. Along comes a new bad guy, the Dragon Lord, who stole the Sphere of Light, without which the realm will eventually perish, which sounds not good. It's up to us to stop him. Now just head out the door and into the world and... wait. Why can't I leave? Well, it looks like we'll need the magic key from one of the chests in order to get out, which always made me wonder how we got in here in the first place. The king's chancellor, I guess, also informs us that on top of the world plunging into darkness, Princess Gwaelin, or however you pronounce it, has been kidnapped and it's up to us to rescue her. Weird that the king didn't mention that during his monologue, but whatever, I guess we'll take care of that too. The first thing we'll need to do after our grueling fight with the door is to get some equipment, because I've never played a game where a naked person saves the world, and frankly, I don't want to. The Switch version already gives you a bamboo spear to start with, so I grabbed a shield to help me avoid taking too much damage early. Now we're equipped and it's time to start grinding. As I mentioned earlier, the grind has been greatly reduced compared to the NES original. To give you an idea, I played the original at 3 times the normal speed, and it still took me longer just to go up a couple levels and purchase better gear. Battles are entirely turn-based, with you selecting an action at the start of each turn and watching the scene play out based on what actions you and the enemy chose. After each battle, you'll be rewarded with money and experience points. Earn enough experience points and you'll level up, potentially increasing your stats. I say potentially because level ups in this game are a bit randomized. This is a double-edged sword because while large level ups in stats like strength and hit points can feel really good, getting bad level ups can leave you needing to grind out another level in order to progress. Again, to give you an idea, for this playthrough, my strength went up more at level 18 than it did at 19, 20, and 21 combined. The battles themselves aren't all that remarkable. Most of them will consist of you mashing the attack command until the enemy dies. You might need to occasionally heal against some of the stronger monsters, but that's about it. You get a couple of attack spells, but their damage is quickly outpaced by the equipment you'll buy or find, and your MP is better off being conserved for healing. Something I did think was neat about the battle system is that whenever a random encounter starts, you aren't taken to an entirely different screen. Instead, the battle screen appears on top of your character sprite, like it's zooming in on your location. The terrain in the background also changes to match the terrain you're standing on, whether it's forests, plains, or mountains. One thing I don't think I appreciated when I was younger is how helpful the NPCs are, usually without really meaning to be. We aren't given much direction at the start, however, a merchant mentions coming from a town to the north. They don't mention anything going on in the town, just that it exists. As a kid, it frustrated me not knowing where the next plot point was. In Dragon Quest, there often isn't a next plot point. We can go to that town or we can skip it for now. Since we don't have anything else going on, I figured why not check out the town. Along the way, we find a cave. This is actually the tomb of our ancestor Erdrick. Not only is this cave completely optional, there are no enemies to be found inside. I decided to go in anyway. At the end of the cave, there's what appears to be a grave. On the grave is writing that informs us that in order to reach the Dragon Lord's castle, we'll need 3 sacred artifacts. These artifacts were given to great sages during Erdrick's time, and if all has gone according to plan, their descendants should still have them. Hopefully, none of them ever needed booze money. There's actually a sage nearby, but he'll only give us the artifact he's holding, the Staff of Rain, if we bring him a harp that will summon monsters. Not entirely sure what he plans to do with it, but it looks like we don't have a choice. After stopping to recover my health at an inn, I found a flute lying on the ground. Does anyone know where the lost and found for this kingdom is? Next, we need to go through a monster-filled cave that serves as the only way to pass from the northern continent to the southern continent. I should mention that all caves in the game have low visibility, and you'll need either a torch or the glow spell in order to see more than a step in front of you. Outside the tunnel, and we reach the town of Remolder, otherwise known as the Land of Magic Keys. The old man is only authorized to sell us up to 6 keys at a time for some reason. Say, wasn't there a locked door back in the cave? And that's a dragon. I'm sure it'll be fine. As I was saying, leaving the dragon alone for now, we learn that there's another sage south of Keyland. Instead of helping us, he forcefully kicks us out of the shrine. Back at the castle, there are a few treasures we can obtain using a key, and along the side of the castle is a randomly placed staircase with another sage who actually just gives us the artifact? Why couldn't they all be like that? Elsewhere in the castle is a man standing just past tiles that will damage you just by walking on them. He tells us how to find the grave of Galen. Can I just say how much I love that the game places as much value on information as it does on actual loot? These aren't forced interactions like a lot of other RPGs where they're required to progress. They do provide you with information that will help you progress, but they aren't necessary if you happen to find the next area or treasure on your own. It's hard to pull off these days now that wikis and walkthroughs are abundant, but for this game it absolutely works. Before we head to Galen's grave, we've got a score to settle. With a couple levels and upgraded gear, timely heals, and a lucky crit, I'm able to vanquish the dragon. Doing so frees Princess Galen, who asks us to awkwardly carry her home. I could take her back to the castle, or I could take her to a monster-infested old grave. I, of course, do the latter. Inside the grave, we find the Lyre of Ire, which, when used as an item, summons monsters. Wasn't there an old man looking for an instrument that summons monsters? So, without questioning the sage's motives for wanting a lyre that can bring forth monsters on a whim, I hand it over in exchange for the Staff of Rain. That's 2 artifacts down, 1 more to go. All we have to do is find some sort of proof of our birthright. The only place on the map I haven't checked out is southwest of the castle. I'm sure someone at the castle would have told me about it had I gone and returned the princess, but nah, she's in it for the long haul now. Along the way there's a village in the desert. I stop in to heal up only to see that the town has had better days. There's something shining just past a few blocks of poison. Attempting to walk up to it triggers a boss fight. I use Fizzle to prevent it from casting sleep on me, as a well-timed sleep spell from a powerful enemy can easily have you waking up in the castle with half your gold. And if you're thinking, whoa, 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 that is too much strategy for me, don't worry, it doesn't come up again. Defeating the knight allows you to collect the Erdrick armor. Not only is it the best armor in the game stat-wise, it also prevents you from taking damage from poisonous floor tiles and heals you every time you take a step. So now that we're invincible, let's go play in the poisonous marsh, just because we can. On the far side of the poison swamp, we find the Mark of Erdrick. Normally you find this using a hint from an old man and an item given to you by the princess, but finding it during a casual stroll through a field of poison works too. We finally have proof of our birthright and can now get the last artifact we need in order to face the Dragon Lord. Before that, we have one last stop to make. The impenetrable fortress town of Cantlin. What makes it impenetrable? Probably the giant golem that attacks you the second you try to enter the town. He hits for around 40 damage per attack, and when you only have 100 health total, you're not going to last very long. Thankfully, the fairy flute we picked up earlier will put him to sleep. I'll just go into my items and... uh-oh. Apparently, when I put the flute in storage for that hilarious lost and found bit, I forgot to take it back out for this fight. So I did the only thing I could think of. Beat him senseless until he dies. Inside Cantlin, you'll find some of the best equipment money can buy. There are also hints as to the whereabouts of the Mark of Erdrick and Erdrick's armor, but since we have them already, we can just do some shopping and get out of here. Rather than walk all the way back, we'll use the zoom spell to take us as far as the castle. While it is a pain having to backtrack across the map multiple times, they very wisely place the castle pretty much in the middle of everything, meaning that when you die or load your game after some time away, you're never too far away from where you left off. So even when backtracking, the zoom spell typically puts us only a few minutes away from our destination. Now we're back at the Grumpy Sage's shrine and he takes our Sunstone and Staff of Rain and makes the Rainbow Drop, which will allow us to enter the Dragon Lord's castle. It probably shouldn't surprise anyone that inside the castle are some of the toughest monsters in the game, but there's still not a lot of strategy to these fights. It's mostly just tapping A and occasionally healing until things die. Just because there's not much strategy involved doesn't mean these things don't hurt. Thankfully, Erdrick's armor will allow you to conserve your MP by healing you with every step you take. This actually introduces a small amount of decision making as you work your way through the castle. Do you use precious MP to heal yourself, or hope you take enough steps between battles to get enough HP to handle the next fight? It's not much, but I do appreciate the game rewarding smart decision making and good resource management. Halfway through the castle, there's a path that leads back up. Taking this path will lead you to Erdrick's sword, the most powerful weapon in the game. Now that we're as well equipped as we can be, it's time to take on the Dragon Lord. During our brief conversation with him, he offers to let us rule half the world. I, of course, tell him to get bent and start stabbing away. The fight isn't hard so much as it is kind of annoying. Dragonlord has a few obnoxious spells at his disposal that cause the fight to drag out a bit. First, there's the sleep spell that can last anywhere from 1 to 4 turns while he just wails away at you. Then there's the mid-heal spell that restores 85 to 100 hit points, which comes out to around 3 to 4 rounds worth of damage. He hits decently hard, but nothing your own mid-heal spell can't handle. Unless he puts you to sleep for 4 turns at the wrong time and gets to punch you to death in your sleep. Eventually, you wear him down and peace returns to the land. But wait, he has another form! Despite having a fireball attack that can hit for over 50 damage, he's actually kinda easier than the first form. He can't heal or put you to sleep, so all you have to do is keep your health up and deal enough damage to him before you run out of MP. Now the Dragonlord is dead and peace returns to the land for real. When we return to the castle, the king tells his men to tend to the princess, which I thought was a little rude until I remembered that I was still carrying the princess with me. The king then offers to let us take over ruling the kingdom for him. Not a bad deal, but we decline in favor of starting our own kingdom. The princess offers to come with us, and since I don't want to propagate a whole new kingdom on my own, I accept. We then leave the castle, headed towards new lands. And that's it! You know, I enjoyed this game much more than I thought I would at the start. It's easy to get focused on how simple the story and combat are, but after looking at it more closely, I realized there's a lot more to this game than that. Mainly, the ability to explore the world as you please. Outside of the locked doors early on, there aren't a lot of arbitrary walls preventing you from going wherever you want. The only limiting factor is your ability to defeat the enemies the game puts in front of you. Want to grind out enough levels so that you can get Erdrick's armor right away? You can! I don't recommend it, as that grind sounds insane, but the game itself never puts those invisible walls up that stop you for seemingly no reason. I also like that the game doesn't overstay its welcome. So often I get to a point in a game where I just want it over with, and I never felt that way with Dragon Quest. Partly because the game is pretty short. A first-time playthrough will probably take between 6 to 8 hours. Outside of the occasional need to stop and grind for money and levels, there's not a lot of unnecessary padding. One question I'm sure people are asking by now is this game worth playing today? It's a tough one to answer. If you've never played an RPG before and want to know if this is a good place to start, I'd say probably not. While the short time commitment might be a big plus, there are other RPGs that fall into the 10 to 20 hour range that RPG newbies will likely find more engaging. On the other hand, if you're already a fan of the genre who's just never gotten around to the series and want to know if it's still worth checking out, definitely. Given the sub $5 price tag, it's a very low risk look at what the series has to offer, knowing that it really only gets better from here. The Switch port is easily my favorite version of the game and is the one I would recommend to most people. The mobile ports are fine, although I'm not a big fan of the portrait orientation. The Game Boy Color version is also okay. It has the reduced grind from the Switch and mobile ports, but there are some weird issues with the text due to a lack of space, like Dragon Lord being shortened to Draco Lord and Fireball being Fireball. I think most newcomers would find the NES version too clunky, given that you need to go into the menu to do anything, even to open doors or go downstairs. If you're a bit more old school and that doesn't bother you, by all means, play the original. Dragon Quest I helped spawn so many of the amazing RPGs that I love today. I'm glad I went back and gave this game another look, not just because I enjoyed playing through it again, but because it gave me a chance to appreciate everything this game did for RPGs. That's gonna do it for me. If you liked the video, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Let me know in the comments what your first RPG was. Also, let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this for the other Dragon Quest games, as I'm currently working my way through Dragon Quest II. If you want to check out some other stuff I've done, I have reviews for Romancing Saga 3 and Star Ocean First Departure, which are both excellent RPGs worth checking out. If you want more Dragon Quest, consider checking out the Legend of Retro podcast at GameZillaMedia.com, where they actually covered Dragon Quest V and even invited me to share my perspective on the game. Link to that in the description below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.